Hope everybody's doing well. Welcome to episode number 3 of In and Around Pleasant Hill podcast with Alex Khodadad. In this episode, I will be interviewing Faramarz Moeen-Ziai with Cross Country Mortgage. Faramarz, how you doing?
Good, Alex. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Good. I hope I should know how to pronounce your last name. Can you, how do you pronounce your last name?
Moeen-Ziai. Between
Mo-
your name and my name, it's an alphabet soup, so no one can ever get it right. It's perfect.
That's
Consonants and vowels flying at you in every direction.
funny. All right. So, as always, do me a favor and subscribe and let your friends know about my new podcast. I hope that this podcast is an inspiration and an educational journey for all of you by me interviewing local business owners and community leaders about their success story. So, Faramars, let's dive right into it. Let's hear about your story. Kind of give us, about your background, and we just want to hear that in detail a little bit if you can, please.
Yeah, well, I'm currently in the mortgage business. I've been doing mortgages for 17 years since 2004. So, I got into it a couple of years before the financial crisis. Before that, I guess I can go backwards from there. So, before that, I've always been self-employed, all my life. I've had jobs here and there, obviously in college and high school and stuff, but for the most part, I've been a student of sales all my life. I love sales, and by sales, I don't mean used car sales, trying to trick somebody into doing something, but really figuring out what's the value proposition and bringing value to somebody, bridging, what they're looking for with what we can deliver on our side. And I started door-to-door sales when I was about 10 years old, doing greeting cards for points, trying to get a skateboard. And then I had a newspaper route. A lot of that was trying to get new people to subscribe. Move from there. I was always doing something. In the summers, I would try to do little ventures and stuff with my friend, whether it was painting addresses on sidewalks for people for $5 a spray paint or whatever. And then in college, I had a couple of ventures where I had local magazines and publications that I was working on with friends of mine. My dad, I was born in San Jose. We moved to Holland for a few years, then Iran. I went to first grade there, moved back here. My dad's always, he studied physics, but he's been entrepreneurial for most of his life. He had a business in Iran, restarted from nothing in Oregon when we moved there, and then restarted from nothing again in San Diego there. So, it's all been self-made. And I was fortunate enough after, I got out of college in 1992, started my own business there. He helped me a lot, actually. It was an import-export company in San Diego doing action sports.
When you said he helped you, you're talking about your dad?
Yeah, yeah, and it wasn't financial help. It was more, so he had been in the import export business himself for 20 years or something, and I took a backpack trip on my summer after college, and going around Europe. All of a sudden, people just were seeing the clothes I was wearing from San Diego, and they'd heard I was from California. And at that time in the early 90s, surfwear and apparel and things were really hot in Europe and Japan, Quicksilver and Rusty and different brands like that. And I just started collecting business cards from shop owners, and because I walked into a store in southern France, and I was looking around there, and the t-shirts were $50, and these were t-shirts that I could get at Kmart for like $8 or something back in San Diego. And so I asked him, I said, what's the deal here? He's like, can you get me t-shirts? And I was like, yeah. I was thinking I could just buy them and sell them to him for $20 or something. I came back, well, learned to find out that between shipping and taxes and everything else, you got to basically get a t-shirt for $2 to sell it for $50 in Europe. But it sparked an idea. And for the rest of my trip, I was not only backpacking, but I was collecting business cards and came back to San Diego. The action sports trade show where everybody brings their wares happened to be in San Diego about 2 weeks after I got back. And I went down there with my dad, quickly put together a business card and made a company. And, I signed up about 6 or 7 companies and represented them in Europe and did some trade shows over there. And, from that, without getting too much into the nitty gritty of it, I went to UCSD for college, and one of the big things they have at UCSD is a supercomputer center. This is pre-internet, and I would go there and do research because there was a bulletin board service where it was just text, no web or anything like that, but you could log on to this terminal. And if you were a surf shop in Switzerland and you wanted Quicksilver, even though you're landlocked, everybody wanted this stuff, you'd go to the US Embassy and you'd fill out a little form with the Commerce Department. And then it would appear on the bulletin board. So you could search what people wanted, from sugar to chicken to t-shirts to snowboards to whatever. So you'd put in search terms, I'd get all these leads, and I'd go back and start faxing and calling people and stuff. And, managed to do some trade shows and got some sales. But one of the days I went to the supercomputer center, I noticed they had this little Macintosh terminal in the corner and with a www sign over it. And I went to check it out, and I was like, wow, this is, pictures and text all in the same thing. It was right about when Netscape was just, launching their first version of a browser. And so my biggest cost at that time was DHLing catalogs out to the world. And so I figured if I could scan these pictures and put them on, so I taught myself HTML, made a little website, talked to somebody. And then the guy that was hosting my website turned me on to a couple of clients who they liked what we had created. And I was self-taught HTML, and they said, can you make us a website? And I said, sure. And one thing led to this lady was really great, influential in my life. And she was a big, hotshot in San Diego. And next thing you know, she had me speaking at the San Diego Direct Marketing Association in front of 200 people about the web and what's coming. And all of a sudden I started to make 10 times more doing websites for people than exporting t-shirts. So I did both for a while.
And what year was this?
It's about 1995 or 6, I'd say.
Okay. So you've already had graduated college.
Yeah.
Well,
And when I registered fmz.com, that's my initials, there were about 10,000 domains on Earth. And I was in the right place at the right time, but I didn't do the right things apparently, because I'm not an internet billionaire. But it was great. For about 10 years or so, then I did that web marketing consulting. I had a lot of big clients. It was all the same way I've always sold. It was all referral, word of mouth, supported by some good branding and working hard, bootstrapped the whole way. Clients were IBM, Lotus, Cisco, Sybase, Gillette, Pricewaterhouse, Ernst & Young. So there were a lot of big companies that were trying to all of a sudden transform to this world of web. And I did that for about 10 years, but because I'd fallen in, I'm not a programmer. I don't love computer programming and sitting and, doing all that. So I had teams that I was managing that were doing that, and I was handling the sales component of it. But, it wasn't my, making websites for people just wasn't my big thing. And so I sold that book of business in about, 02 or so, and was starting a new company with a friend of mine when my wife, she's a dental hygienist, and she got pregnant with our second child, and we weren't fully funded yet. So I was thinking I got to do something to make money. I was actually looking at real estate, and my cousin was in the mortgage business, and I ended up, she said, you got to come check it out. It sounded like a nightmare to me. I'm like, loans? What am I going to take? Like fill out paperwork at a bank? I mean, it sounded like horrible, like death. But I went in, and sure enough, it was dynamic. There were products. The pace was great. I liked so much about it. I called my friend and I said, hey, this is my new career. I love it. I think I'm going to crush it here. And that was 2004. And, been doing that ever since.
And you had about a good couple of years of run, and then obviously we had the crash in
Yeah.
2008. So tell me about that. I mean, like you know, you got into it, and it's and that there's that little secret sauce. Like a lot of folks, you know, you know, since I was a kid, I've always tried to be entrepreneur. Also, too, at 10 years old, did something similar to you, but
Yeah.
instead of selling cards, I was selling newspapers, Oakland Tribune, and I've always had it inside of me. But I really believe you have to be passionate about what you do. If and I know some people, and I know there are people out there that are not passionate about what they do, but they still make a ton of money. But just for me personally, I really have to enjoy. So it seems like in 2004 you finally found something that you were in love with. And do you think maybe the reason, you said you were at the right place at the right time, but maybe you just didn't do the right thing? Do you think maybe because your heart just wasn't in it with your first business?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think I also was immature. I think that looking back now, I was working hard, but I wasn't working smart, and um, I was what's the best way to say it? I wasn't building an enterprise. I was just servicing accounts, right?
Yep.
And you don't know what you don't know until you look back and you realize it. But I think at that time, I've always been able to sell. I've always, been able to communicate well with people and explain to them the value proposition that we bring to the table. I delivered on what we promised, but you're right. The fact that I wasn't into finding out what's the latest JavaScript, what's Oracle doing, can we create Oracle database? That wasn't my thing. And I tried, I was reading all the right things and stuff, and I had a lot of ideas, but it was, it was too early. And when I got into mortgage, I liked it because it was, first of all, I thought I could really help people. And I think, dealing with consumers is great. After 10 years of doing business to business sales, which is fine, but it's different when you're doing business to consumer. There's a lot on the line. You really get to know people. I like relationships. I like people. I like engaging with them. And so this really scratched the itch. And it's, the thing about mortgage, the first guy that interviewed me, I went in for a job interview at this mortgage company where my cousin worked. After I was helping her for about 2 or 3 months, just seeing if I liked it, and I decided I want to do this. So I went, and at that time we got a DRE license. It was before the financial crisis and NMLS and stuff. So I got my license and walked in. And one thing I did was I wore a suit every day, and nobody else did, but it was just my thing. And I walked in with my briefcase and my suit. I had my resume for what I perceived to be a job interview. And he didn't ask me one thing about me. He told me that, the mortgage is not something you go to school for. There's no majors in mortgage or anything like that. He said, we're all a bunch of losers here that didn't make it at something else. So we ended up in the mortgage business.
Uh,
And if you're in this business 6 months from now, I'll be shocked. So I took that as a challenge. And, I immediately started reaching out, referrals, the only way I've ever worked. And I became really intense about it. Not only did I have to feed people at home, we'd had our second baby. And so that's a huge source of inspiration. As you got to put a roof over your family's head. But I liked what I was doing. So it seemed easy. I was putting in a lot of hours and reaching out to people. And I break this business up into three segments, right? The first is getting the word out. People have to know that you exist and what you do, right? So that when they need them, whatever your service is, they think of you. So that's component one. And you could do that with, um, you know, whatever, happy hours, door knocking, sending out postcards, whatever your thing is. You got to be whatever your thing is, just do that with other people, right? So you feel comfortable and natural. The second part is actually doing the loan and knowing the guidelines and getting the loan done and getting that executed. And the third, which is really important, a lot of people don't do, is everybody who closed is a potential referral source. So keeping in touch with that past, so you don't have to go back to square one every time. So mining and maintaining and providing value to the people that you worked with so that they can send you their family, friends, and coworkers. And most of when I got into the business, most of what I did was phase one, because phase two was so easy. It was dumb. All you had to do was run a credit report, and I consulted people. We talked about payments and affordability and things like that. But getting the actual loan done, if it didn't work at one place, it would work at another for the same interest rate. And everybody was doing exceptions. If you didn't have all the right paper in, they would just say, it's okay, we'll fund the loan. And getting that part done was not that difficult. All of a sudden, two major things happened for me. One is I was introduced to who I call, he's one of my, guys I really look up to, just a loan guru. This guy came to work at our company, sat in the office next to me, and I saw a completely different way to do the business, and to actually execute. At the same exact time, the financial crisis hits, and all those options just disappeared overnight, and you couldn't do a loan. And the only loan you could do was FHA, Fannie, Freddie, and you had to get good because there was no exceptions. There was no, you had to do it perfect the first time. There was no plan B. And this guy was a guideline guru. And a lot of people in my business were kicking and screaming, crying about underwriting conditions. I can't believe they're asking for this. And that's which is useless, right? So I became, all of a sudden, I went from phase one of the business to 100% phase two. This is when it actually became a career after I was in it for 4 years, because I studied guidelines. I was reading and making sure everything was correct. I was talking to underwriters about, what do you need? How should this be? And they were receptive to it. And this guy helped me a lot, and became a complete number two guy doing the actual loan. And my business exploded from there. When a lot of people left the business, they were quitting.
And who is this? And who is this guy you keep? This gentleman that you looked up to. Who is this
But I
person?
don't want to give his name because everybody's going to go to him for loans. I'm just kidding. No, his name's Eric, and he's a guy that I'm still really good friends with him today, and he's great, and he still teaches me to this day. I go to him with questions, and he's I wouldn't structure it the way he does, because in addition to having an encyclopedic knowledge of loans, he's a major control guy on his files. And I'm trying to delegate more and create, a support system around me. But he does a tremendous amount of business. He's fantastic. And I learned a lot from him there. And
Yeah.
I was going to say that in terms of like advice and things like that, that was a key moment for me, because one of the things that I'd seen a lot of people do all my life is try a bunch of different stuff. And as soon as it got hard, bail out. And I had that opportunity. I almost went back to join my partner back in technology. What he and I had kind of conceived of in '02 was starting to take some steam, but I decided to double down and stick with it. And I swear, Alex, it seemed hopeless. I mean, there was a 6-9 month period where we were living on credit card. We couldn't do a loan, and I didn't have the book of business to really have tremendous volume. And we were living
I remember those days where for us,
crazy.
for a year, we didn't do one real estate transaction. Believe me, I know. I remember those days.
I
Yeah.
was living on credit cards. I was, my parents loaned me some money. We owned a house. I had 2 young kids. It was right when my kids were turning 5 and 6, going to private school. The expenses were tripling. I'm like, I can't afford private school. What am I doing? So it was really stressful, and it would have been easy to quit, but I stuck with it. And a year later, everything popped. The Fed got involved, rates went down, refinances started. I became really good at loans. Realtors started trusting me with their business, and it all kind of went from there. And I had the best, years of, in terms of income up to that point of my life. And so it was just so many times I think success is right on the other side of when it's darkest. It's right on the other side of when you feel the most hopeless, right? Because that's when everybody else quits. But if you can just kind of punch through, it's not a stone wall. It might just be paper. They just a little more nudge and boom, it pops for you.
You know, they made a great book about that. Who Moved My Cheese? I'm sure you've read that book,
No,
but
I haven't actually.
it's a
I'm gonna
great
put that
book.
on my list.
Yeah, who moved my cheese? It's a great book about, you know, right before you're about to give up. Like even me in 2008, my mom was diagnosed with cancer, and
Um,
my life was already upside down. My business was pretty much done, and and something just told me to take. I had about $175,000 in line of credit on my property, and I was just like, I'm going to take this money out, and I took it out, and 2 months later, Wells Fargo froze all lines of
Froze it.
and
Yeah.
me, I had 175, and my friend had like 160. And for the next 5 years, we made millions just by buying and flipping. We were buying houses in Antioch for $60,000. And that's how I was able to make my living. And I had to, because I knew real estate was it for me. I did exactly what you did, double down. I doubled down on it, and I did that for many, many years. So going back to you, you said something about which I like a lot, you know, coming from the technology world, you created websites, you did all that. So I'm assuming you were probably one of the first people with the whole digital marketing stuff too, correct?
Yeah, that was really, really surprising to me. One of the first things in 2004 when I got into mortgage, I came from a world of email and stepped into a world of faxes. I was shocked at how backwards and slow, and I've come to realize why, because number one, it's a legacy. It's a moving business. It's a transactional business, and you can't shut it down to implement a whole new technology, right? So it's hard. It's a challenging thing to implement a new system. So they're slow to move. There's a compliance issues up crazy, right? There's all kinds of regulations, compliance, and major concerns about security, right? So the biggest thing in mortgage is security. When you look at somebody's loan application, we have their name, address, birth date, social security number, all their credit card account numbers, all their bank account numbers, all in 3 pages, right? It's a major, it's the golden thing for people who want to do identity theft. So security is a big, big deal. So I came in, I'm like, why can't people just do it, online application and stuff? Well, because without ironclad security, I mean, at that time, I don't even think banks, you couldn't even do online checking or anything yet, in like 2002, 3, 4 and stuff.
Yeah.
So it was very backwards, but I was always trying to leverage technology as best I could. And when technology caught up to the mortgage business in about 2009, 10, after the financial, it was a pause. It was an opportunity for everyone to kind of redo everything, especially with Dodd-Frank, new regulations, new disclosures. I mean, the reset button was forced upon the industry. I was very quick to adopt a lot of technology where a lot of my peers were struggling with it. And that helped me a lot at that point to kind of accelerate my business for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So were you able to use that same digital marketing for sales? Like you were talking about the three different stages, the
Yeah.
marketing, really understanding, kind of becoming what they call a specialist. You know, Michael Gerber, he wrote a book, E-Myth, and it talks about the entrepreneur, the managerial, and also the technician. But it seemed to me like your friend, your mentor, Eric, he kind of really got you to dive into and really understand the product, correct?
100%, but also the systems. So I was relying when he joined the company, I was relying on other people at the company to do a lot of the things that he was doing himself, and
Mhm.
which was big. So Chase had this an online portal called Zippy, where you could punch in a bunch of stuff and it would give you back findings and let you know if you have a loan or not. I would have to give my documents to somebody else, a processor or someone. They would then log into Zippy. They would do the run for me, and they'd come back and say no. And I'd say, well, why not? Well, I'm not sure. Well, can you go try to see what if we had more assets? What if they got a gift? See, and then that whole process, and what Eric was doing in about 15 minutes was taking me a day and a half, right? So he showed me. He's like, no, you get your own login. You'd go in and that was challenging for a lot of people. Me coming from technology, I was like, this is what I've been waiting for. Why have nobody told me this before? So that and just getting access, knowing where to go to get guidelines, how to read them, how to search them, you know, all that stuff was really critical. And so when we switched then to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac catching up with their automated underwriting systems and everything, then yeah, for sure. Database management, something nobody knew about. A lot of people had note cards with their clients' names on them, right?
That's right.
I came from the world of database. I created it. I managed it. You know, when did someone close? Having little reports. I created my own little access database, and then, you know, CRMs kind of caught up, and we were able to really leverage that and do a lot of stuff there. But you know, even transactionally leveraging technology, I was the only one who was using the automated updates from the system that we got, the Encompass system, because nobody else could figure it out. It was just too much of a challenge for them. I started sharing this with other loan officers at the company, where when something happens in the file, automatically updates go out to various people, right? To let them know that what's happening, so they don't have to keep calling you and say, hey, am I in underwriting yet? What's happening? So proactive outbound updates and leveraging technology to actually do the loan really increase the service level for my clients for sure.
So it seems like what you did is you went pretty much in 2008, 9, when things had slowed down a little bit. You went from working in your business to kind of working on your business,
For
right? Like
sure.
really understanding, building the process, procedures, and taking it to the next level, and not just looking. You know, there was a great book written by Chris Smith called Conversion Code. It talks about the marketer, the scheduler, the closer, and obviously, people see me do podcasts, people see me with the Facebook group, but those are things that I want to do for my community, but it's also an exposure for me, right? It's
Yeah.
like, but then there's also, I need to understand my product. Not only do I need to understand it, but I have to be able to educate that to my own agents, to my team members. And that's why, like, when I see people that are always telling me, my God, like, where do you get the time to do all this? Well, that's why we have a team. Like, I have a team on, even after we finish doing this podcast, I have a listing appointment. I'm going to go
Right.
my co-listing agent. It's like building teams and really working on the business. And 2020, I know, was a blessing year for you and for me, but it was also a reset for me to really even spend more time working on my business. So 2010, you're doing well. So I see that was it 2014 through 17, you were like in the top. You had won a lot of awards. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So you know, post financial crisis, I continued to grow my business with a lot of purchase business, and um, by 14, I was doing over 100 million a year in loans, which is a lot, and
A lot.
it puts me like in the top 100 or 200 or whatever, nationally in this in rankings and stuff. But um, what I was really getting a kick out of was what I was referencing before. I was teaching a lot of my fellow loan officers, about some of the systems I was using and how to just get loans through and all that. And their business was starting to grow. I was coaching them on real estate engagement, on with the value that we bring to realtors and communication and things like that. And their business started to grow. And so I'd been at the same company. The ownership knew me. They'd asked me to be the national sales manager. The position was vacant at the time. I thought about it for a long time. I decided to take it. And managing loan officers, what attracted me to being in the loan business was that you can be entrepreneurial, right? You're your own boss, your own time manager. So managing a couple of hundred people who feel like they're entrepreneurs is incredibly challenging. So and I know you probably feel the same about some of your agents, maybe, where a guy would come to me and he'd say, yeah, I can't grow my business. And so, well, let's take a look at your week. What are you doing on a weekly basis? Well, if I tell you these 5 things to do and you do these every week, your business will grow. Check in a month later, I'm not doing any of those things. It's like, you have to want it and you have to do it. But So that was interesting. The thing that was really eye opening for me, like I said, you don't go to mortgage university. You kind of just jump into it and build your own business. I had been in my bubble for 10 years and traveling the country, recruiting other branches, visiting other loan officers, helping other loan officers, opened my eyes to a million things that I had not been doing in my business that I thought were really cool. And after 3 years of this, I started to get the fire back for, you know, I want to go and apply some of these things that I'm seeing. I'm trying to teach everybody else all these techniques and stuff, but I decided, so I told them that, by the end of 17, I'm going to go back to my own book of business, which had shrunk now to maybe, 10 million a year. Right. So, but it was a good, because it wasn't like trying to change a tire on a car that's moving. I was able to come back, reset, reimagine the whole business with 10 years of experience and start fresh. And I did that in 2018 and rapidly just kind of built the thing back up to where, my team and I were doing about 25, 30 million a month now. So
Wow.
we're doing triple what I ever did, in my best years before this venture. And that sales management not only showed me what was happening on the front end, I learned the entire mortgage business. I learned secondary marketing, what you do with a loan after it closes, operations, underwriting, closing, docs, relationship with investors, all this soup to nuts. It gave me a tremendous kind of global view of the mortgage business, which I can apply now on the front end much better, to service my clients better.
Wow, that is so cool. So then 2018 you get back into it yourself, but then
Yeah.
obviously you have a team. How many team members do you have with you right now?
So we're up to 11 now, and I'm trying something new. This has been the vision, and I'm trying. I've hired just now this last week a new position I've never had before. Is two client service specialists. They're both licensed loan officers. They work for me. They're going to work my loans, but they're going to handhold my clients from start to finish. Because one of the things that's happened is I hit capacity. We've got 112 active loans right now in my name, and all those questions filter through me, and it's too much. So I'm not able to get to everybody in a timely enough fashion to to really achieve the service levels that are demanded of me and I demand of myself. So I've hired these two guys are going to get assigned loans. I'm still here. I'm still going to talk to clients. I'm still going to be you know, the person doing everything. But because they're licensed loan officers, they know everything about loans. They can talk interest rate, and they can also give updates to realtors. They can give updates to clients. They're going to be really bird dogging these files as they go through, so nothing gets missed. And I'm excited about this. I think this is going to be a big transformative, couple of months in my business here.
Yeah, it's been challenging for me also too. We do about 25 million this year. We're on track to hit 30 million,
Yeah,
and I'm okay with that. I don't, obviously, I could do way more. I can go hire five more agents because my kids
right.
are small and I want to spend time with my family. So I, di- I'm very happy where I am right now. But the same thing too, it's like when we go on a listing appointment, people are hiring me, and yet I'm
Right.
taking somebody else there with me. So I gotta let them know that, look, I'm still here. I'm not leaving. This is my co-listing agent, or this is my buyer's agent, but I'm here. I am gonna make sure that everything goes smooth. So it's a little bit challenging, but
Yeah.
it's one of those things, like, you just got to do the best, because you, like you said, there's a capacity. You're going to get to a certain point, like, one, people always say, like, what do you want to do? I want to make a lot of money. That It's too vague. Okay, you want to make a lot of money, but what are you willing to give up to make that all that money? Like,
That's
right
right.
now you're doing so well for yourself. You're doing 100 million a year, but there's a capacity. How many places could you be at one time, right? Now you need to have a team. Now you need to make sure that those folks, whoever that's hired you to for purchase or refinance, that you're able to service them too. So we have to be very mindful about that. So my next thing to you is that we talked about this on one of our meetings, and it actually it's it makes me think about it all the time. Is this whole biohacking, right? It's
Right.
like we talked about that. So for those folks that are thinking about getting in whatever industry, right? It doesn't matter. I don't care if you're an entrepreneur. I don't care if you're Uber driver or whatever. We all have stress. There's no such thing as no stress. Like for you, Faramarz, when you're having stress or you're having a bad day, you've given me advice on biohacking and I'm very familiar. But for our listeners listening to this for the first time, tell us about your technique about the whole biohacking. How did you even come up with it? Who did you learn
Well,
from it?
yeah. So I've been a student of sales, like I said, all my life. I've been to seminars. I read books. I listen to podcasts, all this different stuff. This is no secret. This is something that Tony Robbins does at the beginning of his seminars. And I went to one in Las Vegas. It was a mortgage conference, and he came out, and we're at the conference all day. You're walking the trade show floor. You're listening to speakers all day, and he pretty much had it. I was borderline about to say, let's just get out of here. You know, I don't want to sit through another one of these. He comes out, clapping his hands, makes everybody stand up, clap their hands, makes you do something goofy, right, with your hands, makes you high five the person next to you. The next thing I know, I'm energized, right? And he explained it, and it's worked for me. Is that if you're feeling good naturally, your brain is releasing certain chemicals, right? Endorphins, serotonin, all these different things. So there's a way that you can physically, like when you're not feeling good, get yourself into a body position and jump up and down, do something goofy, act like a little kid, stand up straight with your shoulders back and look at the sky and just smile for 30 seconds. And you trigger those same chemical releases that happen when you naturally feel good. And then you've kind of hacked the system that way, is that you've eliminated some stress, you've created good feelings in your body instead of all the negative things that are flowing out, right? The glands and chemicals and all the fight or flight reaction that happens when we get stressed, and what happens to us when it tenses our body. You've reversed that, and now you can think more clearly, right? Now you can engage better. And I started doing this on sales calls when I'd be going to present in front of a real estate office or something like that. I would just play something in the car, and then the physical action of clapping your hands together and stuff like that triggers this, and you become kind of on fire, as it were, right? And you can go in better. The other thing that I learned is that when I'm heading to a sales call, when I'm going to actually go to a sales call, I I have a couple of choices. You can listen to music on the way there. You can do different things. But what I found is if I listen to a sales podcast, it kind of opens that file cabinet in my brain of that category and that department and thinking in that way, so that when you walk in and you do your presentation, you're a little bit more in zone, with what you're doing. And so I try to prep for what I'm doing by doing a little bit of listening around that type of stuff, right? So it's just little things like that, because the industry is stressful. Everything is under a time crunch. Everything is very detail oriented. Everything is very, you got to get everything exactly right. And
That's
there's a
right.
lot online. People feel stress. They exude it. And you can't take that on. So,
That's right.
I'm kind of the heart surgeon of the transaction, and I can't freak out because something's going wrong, right? Because you just have to be able to think clearly and process it. So
Absolutely, absolutely. This podcast, this interview has been so interesting. I mean, time is just flying by. We're very limited. Just a quick couple minutes. Right now, in the future, when someone's listening to this podcast, it might not relate, but for now, we know that the market is really, really hot. Just
yeah,
in 1 or 2 minutes, really quickly, for those folks right now that are trying to compete with someone that's going all cash, and let's say they have to go FHA or they have to go with maybe 5 or 10%. Do you have any advice for those buyers out there right now trying to buy their home?
it's tough. I mean, it's really, really tough. What I would say is start early with a lender, get fully pre-approved, fully underwritten. Don't hold back and say, okay, I'm not going to engage you until I see the house that I like, because by then it's too late. If we can get fully underwritten, fully approved, so that the only thing we have to close is the purchase contract and the appraisal, we can close much more quickly. We can give your realtors the advantage of shaving maybe a week off of that pre-approval closing time frame, where we're saying, instead of 30 days, we're saying 21 days, and that makes a big difference. And letting the seller know that you're fully underwritten, fully approved is a big difference. So start early with a lender. um, I really defer to the agents when it comes to this, because work with a great realtor. It's the complete game changer. Complete the communication on deals that have been successful in the last 2 or 3 months when it's been really competitive. It's the realtor communicating with the listing agent, getting an idea of where things are, what's the deal, some people are getting pre-inspection so they can waive their inspection. Like these kinds of strategies are so crucial
Yep.
versus just working with someone who's not going to engage on a full-time basis. So a lot of the guys, a lot of the people who work for you have been great to work. We've done a lot of deals together. We've gotten into contract in this hot market a lot of times with not huge down payments and stuff, which is unheard of. And it's because your agents are great, and they really engage, they're aggressive, they talk to the listing agents, and they get an idea of what's it going to take to win this house, and we go from there. But that's a huge factor.
And you've done a great job. So really quickly, your company, tell us about your name of your company and where you're located. And if somebody wants to reach you, how can they reach you?
Yeah, so I'm the branch manager of the Berkeley office of Cross Country Mortgage. Cross Country is a national company. We lend in all 50 states. We do about 50 billion a year. Great company to work for. Great technology. A lot of great products. We sell direct to Fannie and Freddie. So from a loan product standpoint, it's fantastic. Um, you can either call me 510-254-4697, or you can see it on the screen there. You can just go to fmzteam.com, team.com, and that'll give you all of our contact info right there.
So Faramarz, I really appreciate you. I
It's been a
appreciate you.
pleasure, Alex. Thank you.
Yeah. So, guys, do me a favor and watch our future episodes. Make sure you're listening in and subscribing, and even sharing with someone you think that might be benefit from this episode. And I hope to inspire as many people as possible. Thank you guys for tuning in. Until next time, take care. Bye bye.